Okay, and welcome everybody to the Turtle and Crow Show. And today's title to our show is, If Hate is the Answer, then how stupid was the question? And so I hope you stick with us, and I just want to give everybody a shout out to begin the show and say thanks for everybody joining us in the chat. Also, please, if you would like to support People for People Radio, the best thing that you could do for us would be to go to our pod sections, which you can find to the right of the chat. We have 3 of them. Give us a follow and pass those pods around if you would. And you can also go to peopleforpeopleradio.ning.com, and dot is spelled out D-O-T. So that's peopleforpeopleradio.ning.com on YouTube, and subscribe to us. Watch our videos, thumbs them up, thumbs them down, whichever way you feel, and leave a comment for us. This is how we come together and we find solutions. This is how we talk about the issues that we're facing. And it would be so appreciative to have your support in those areas. And like I said, we are so thankful that you join us every week on People for People Radio, and we are growing. And actually, Barb, I forgot, we're right around the time of our first anniversary.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's been a year we've been doing this with People for People Radio, and the family has grown, and we love you guys. What a beautiful family we have. And yeah, so how's it going, sis?
Hey, sis, my sister. Hey, everybody out there. It's so good to be here again. I almost didn't make it. Computer crashes and tearing of hair and gnashing of teeth stuff for me the last several days. And so I'm happy to be here. And it feels like we've been on People for People longer than a year, though, I have to say. And it's been pretty awesome to see the family growing and the beautiful people out there. So, hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Turtle and Crow Show. And, yeah, Patty and I were talking just before we got on about the challenges of doing shows and how... we want to find good stuff to offer everyone. I want to talk to you right now, heart to heart. I'm going to talk to you heart to heart out there, people who are listening on People for People, and anybody else who's out there listening. I want to talk to you heart to heart because sometimes I guess I just determined, and Patty and I have talked about this, that we were given a job to do. It's almost like we can't deny it, the way Spirit put us two together and brought us even here to People for People. And so I just want to say sometimes the job that you're given by Creator is a tough job. It's not easy. But we can't deny that we were asked to come here. The way Spirit worked with us and at the meetup on the Great Wheel of Life, here we are. And Patty and I have been doing radio together for many years. And now we're here on People for People with all you beautiful people out there. I'm so glad. But so heart to heart, I want to say sometimes we're asked to do things, our job, that is a big challenge. But you can't get away from it. Like you can't say, well, I don't want to do it anymore. Well, let me reframe that. I have said I can't do this anymore. I have said I'm done. I have said I don't want to do this anymore. And, because I feel like sometimes I'm talking to, and I've said this, I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall. And that's rough when you get to that place where you say, I've done all this work. I've spoken from my heart, something I really feel is so important, so significant for everyone, for all of us to know, to learn about, to explore, and at least listen to be able to discern and figure something out, not just to delete people or shut them off, but to actually be able and willing to keep your heart open, your ears open, And I've been there. I have said to you, Patty, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm been talking to a brick wall. Shaziz has said that. I've called him back. I've brought him back from the brink of ending, and you've brought me back from the brink of stopping and giving up. And so the giving up piece, I guess, is not an option. That's why I'm talking to you here from my heart. I'm happy and honored and humbled to be able to speak to you people out there. And I know both myself and my sister Patty and many people who are hosts on People for People work from that heart spirit. We have the good intentions. We have peace and healing and harmony and all ways and solutions from our heart spirits. That's how we present ourselves. So yeah, there have been times when I said, that's it, I'm done. So today it's sort of like, okay, what we're going to talk about today and what we've talked about in the past are sometimes really challenging to hear or difficult or brand new information maybe that you've never heard of before. We have 3 links I'm going to work with here, Patty and I are going to work with, and they're very interesting, deeply interesting, very informative, and I think very significant to where we are today, to what is happening to all of us, how we are being affected today. And why we're reading this information is to come to the solutions, because I do believe we are all being affected by this ramping up of divisiveness and negativities and fears and hate, and we are all being affected by this. And this is quite serious because our country has suddenly come into this arena that is quite shocking. Not to say that there was never any divisiveness before or prejudices or hatred. No, these things have always been present in society throughout the whole of the world. But something has shifted to such a degree that right now I think people are really in fear and confused, stumbling around, trying to figure out, where do I stand? What should I be feeling? What should I be thinking? And how inundated we are with varying degrees of factions of information, of divisiveness, of hatred, of separateness. And the other side is, of course, the compassion and love that we speak about. So people are in this state, and this is why we're going here today, talking about the psychology of hate, the psychology of divisiveness, fear, how all of this links. And we're going to start that way. And I'm asking you again, as I often do, to stay with us, open your heart, and be with us through this job we have to do. Patty and I were given this job, and we'll be so grateful that you stick with us. And if you have any questions or any comments in the chat, please, post them. And that's the wonderful thing about People for People, is that you and I, Patty and you all, we can all communicate, which is really great. That's what this is all about, open-hearted communication. No attacking each other, no negativity, no anger, just open-hearted communication, because that's the big piece here. So do you want to say anything before I get to the links?
Well, yeah, and I appreciate what you said, sis, and I'm so glad that you opened today, because your words are really important. And what you said is of omni importance to this show today, because there are a lot of differing emotions, and I would ask only that let's bring the emotions closer to the heart today. Instead of reacting, let's sit back. Let's talk about this. Listen to the discussions that me and Barb will go through. Please join in them. And let's bring about a place of calm, a place of inner standing, because that's the only way we get out of this. We can't take the emotional triggering road. We cannot let our minds be ruled by emotion at this time. This is a very serious subject that we're talking about, and it has come to a point to where I see that we are really in trouble as a society of individuals worldwide. This is not something that is going to get swept up under the rug. This is something that if we don't sort it out, our children are going to carry this. And
That's
that
right.
would be a most disastrous thing to see, is our children in the future carrying this hate and thinking that it's okay. We have to stop this now. We have to stop it now. And that's what this show is about. So thank you so much, Barb, for
You're welcome. Well, I want to say one more thing about hate or, anger. We have prejudice, right? And hate usually is aligned with this. And we all know, we've talked about this, we're not born with hatred or prejudices. We learn those. We all have the capacity to learn them, right? And this is where we are today. Because we're seeing the rise of this divisiveness and hatred toward our brothers and sisters, and we've so many times talked about the solutions is coming together. You and I claim, and I claim it again, we are one big family here on this Mother Earth, and there are people who are in trouble. There are people who have lost their way. There are people who are doing things that are harmful. There are people who even have sold their souls, to the devil, we say in that term, meaning they are overboard doing very bad stuff and evil stuff. Okay, but in general, I feel that they are still our brothers and sisters because we speak the words Mitakuye Oyasin, meaning we are all related. Therefore, okay, in my understanding of those words in the Lakota tradition, we are all related, meaning, yes, even some of our brothers and sisters that are lost. And therefore, but the grace of God go I could have taken that road. We are given free will by the Creator, and our free will to choose either to love and to be compassionate and to speak to unity and coming together, or the other choice. Again, it's in our hands. And people are choosing one road or the other at this timeline. And why we're talking about this is because we see the people being inundated with a lot of messages about which road to choose, which way to turn. And this, of course, is simple. There's one path to the light, which consists of the love and compassion and unity, and the other path that is divisiveness, hatred, prejudice, and all that goes along with that one. We are going to be talking after we finish the first two links here, which is I find you're gonna find this amazing, I think. It's called The Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, meaning there are rules that have been put out. In other words, it's like a book that tells you if you are a person that wants to disrupt things, corrupt things, create anarchy or divisiveness and disunity and hurt people, that's the book for you. And I want to read that because Patty and I have often talked about there's an agenda, there's a plan, okay? And this will show this very clearly, that there actually are people, and this is hard to believe. There are actual people who sit down, who write books about how to train people to be radicals and hurtful people, hateful people, harmful people, and that's mind-blowing to me. But we're doing this because we want all the information laid out on the board for people, so we all have all the pieces. And that's why we're doing this. So that's where I'm going to go there. And then we have Psychology of Hate. Shall I get started?
Yes. And I'll go ahead. Which one are you going with first? And I'll post the link.
I'm going with the Psychology of Hate. That's the first link. It's, why do we hate? That's the question. The Psychology of Hate. So this is about an incident that happened. Maybe some of you even I vaguely remember this. This was quite shocking, but recently several members of a group calling itself Respect the Flag were sentenced to prison for terrorizing guests at the birthday party of an 8-year-old African-American girl in Georgia. This group of people, calling themselves Respect the Flag, pointed a shotgun and yelled racial slurs and death threats at the guests, including the children. Now, this article says this was not an isolated incident because, according to a recent study, there are at least 917 organized hate groups in the United States. Now, I didn't know that. I mean, think of that. 917 organized hate groups. Do you want to join our hate group? Come on. I mean, I can imagine that, right? Okay. The study is based on data collected by the Southern Poverty Law Center and presented in their annual census of hate groups. It looked at the presence of hate groups on Twitter. SPLC found that the number of likes and comments on hate group accounts grew by 900% in just the last 2 years. How could you click like for a hate group? But anyway, that's what's happening. So the question is, why do we hate? You know, the reasons are complex. They really are. But following are some of the factors that may play a role in helping us to understand this, helping us to understand this act or these acts of hate, and hopefully we can work toward a change. And that's why we're doing this. We're all for working toward a change, but it's almost like you have to know what you're up against, right? The warrior has to know the enemy before you can affect change. So it starts out with fear of the other. Yeah, and we could certainly talk about fear of the other. I mean, causes a lot of hate and prejudice. It's fear of the other. Okay, one reason we hate is because we fear things that are different from us. And there's behavioral researchers involved in this. This person, Patrick Wanas, says he cites in-group, out-group theory, which posits that when we feel threatened by perceived outsiders, we instinctively turn toward our in-group, in other words, who we feel safe with, those who we identify with. That's why we have groups like, the Ku Klux Klan or the Antifa now, or various other things along those lines. That's the in-group for certain persons who those people identify with. So this is a survival mechanism we're talking about. So hatred is driven by two key emotions of love and aggression. One, love for the in-group, who you feel safe with and who you believe in, the group that is favored. And two, aggression for the out-group, or who's different, or who's on the outside, or who looks different, dresses different, who has a different religion. So the group that has been deemed as being different or dangerous and a threat to that in-group, okay? And anyone, I'm going to say anybody can make someone a threat by the words they use. We talk about people, right? I mean, we gossip. We talk about people. We judge people. And this is part of how we affect the others around us to think or to feel as well. So, fear of ourselves. That's interesting. So the things people hate about others are actually the things that they fear within themselves. And I have experienced that with people. I told a story about this woman. I was in her house one day, and we were talking, and she happened to look out the window and saw this neighbor walking down the road. He was just taking a walk. And she became very irate and activated, and started getting so frustrated and saying, I hate that guy. He just drives me crazy. I really hate him. I can't stand him. And I was looking at her and saying, well, what's going on with you? Who is that person? And she started, he's my neighbor, and he's a procrastinator, and everything he promises he never follows through with. He's just that kind of a lazy blah, blah, blah. And I was listening to what she was saying, and it was ironic because in some of our conversations, she had even said to me, I'm so frustrated at myself. I feel like I procrastinate over everything I'm trying to do. And here she's pointing at this neighbor down the street and she's irate and spewing out this hatred because he's a procrastinator. So that's sort of what this information here is talking about, right? What we fear within ourselves, or what we're frustrated about within ourselves, it is suggested that the targeted group or person is a movie screen almost. It's onto which we project unwanted parts of ourselves. The idea, I guess, stems from, well, I'm not terrible, they are. Or I'm not terrible, you are. I'm fine, they're the bad guys, okay? So this phenomenon is known as projection. It's a term coined by Freud, actually, who described our tendency to reject what we don't like about ourselves. And psychologist Brad Reedy further describes projection as our need to be good, okay, like our need to be seen as good, or our need to be seen as special, or, or a good person, or having everything together, right? So this causes us to project the badness outward and on whomever it is, and then we attack that other person, okay? So it's sort of like an inner need to be the good person, right? So we developed this method to survive. Now that's interesting, right? Survival method. How do they explain this? So for our badness in us, put us at risk for being rejected and alone. Yeah, so nobody wants to be rejected. We don't want to be alone. We want to fit in. So we want to present ourselves as the good person, or the worthy person, the likable person, the lovable person, right? So we repress the things that we thought were bad. In other words, what others told us or suggested to us that was unlovable and morally reprehensible, and we employ instead hate and judgment toward others. We think that is how one rids oneself of undesirable traits. But this method only perpetuates repression, which leads to many mental health issues. Okay, do you have anything you want to add in this moment, Sis?
Well, yeah, to the point that I've seen this exhibited over and over and over throughout my life. And I talk about it a little bit on the show, where even when I've been attacked, I haven't been able to hold that against them, because I automatically go to the other side and I see from that perspective. And I've seen this played out over and over and over, that the individual is only reacting out of their own emotional state of self. And
Right.
This cannot be cured by joining a group. This cannot be cured by transmuting your emotional status on someone else as if it belongs to them. It only ingrains it deeper within yourself, that you must then defend yourself even more for the actions that you take. So you become more radical because you cannot back down. And at any time that you're given a rebuttal, it puts you again in that protective mode. And that's what gets between the heart and your communication, because you immediately block off what it is that you do not want to accept about yourself. And that repression, it manifests, and it creates a bigger problem, a bigger issue, more emotional baggage that you have to carry. So just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I guess there's something innate within you, and I have that myself. I've always felt I could sort of like see the other person, that they are hurting or needing attention or needing to be seen, needing to be important or significant, you know. And I'll give you another example. When I first did a ceremony with my teacher, Wallace Black Elk, it was the first time I had met him, and there were a lot of people there, and he gave me an eagle feather. An eagle wing, and he said, I want you to take this eagle wing and I want you to smudge people off when they come in, before they come into the sacred fire and where the altar is. And so it had a bowl, a little shell with sage in it, and then when people would start to come in, I would stop them and we'd smudge them off with the eagle feather and wipe them down so that they're in a good space, and all the traffic and everything else, whatever is, washed away with that sage, that sacred smoke we call it. And so I was doing that. That was the job he gave me. And people were complying because most people know, okay, you come to a sacred ceremony, you're going to get smudged off, and that's part of it. Part of the protocol. And one woman walked up, all very strong type woman, walked up aggressive and had a strong intention. And she said to me, I don't need that. I've been to many ceremonies. I've worked with many elders. I know what this is all about, and da-da-da-da-da. And I looked at her and I said, wow. I said, that's amazing. I said, so maybe you should do the smudging. Maybe I'll give you the wing and you the smudge bowl, and you can smudge everybody off because you obviously know what you're doing. And I handed her the feather and the smudge bowl, and I walked away. And she stood there with her jaw was dropped, of course, and I just walked away. I didn't even look back. I know she would take over because I saw in that person a need to be important. She told me everything about her. I've already done this. I've been with that elder. I've done this and that, and I know everything. So I saw that inside of herself was a desperate need to be seen and to be important, and I gave it to her. It didn't bother me. I didn't argue with her. I didn't get annoyed, and I didn't get angry. I just saw a part of her that needed to be seen, was desperate to be seen as someone important and significant, to be validated, and I gave it to her. It was fine with me. I didn't need it. I didn't get offended. I didn't get triggered. And that's what I'm talking about, I think what you're talking about, right, sis? That kind of energy, right?
Yes.
So what we're talking about here is lack of self-compassion. You know what the antidote to hate is? Compassion. This is the ultimate antidote to hate, is the complete opposite, is compassion for others as well as ourselves. Self-compassion means that we accept the whole self, okay? That woman didn't have self-compassion. She couldn't even get close to accepting herself. She had to strive for and push and shove her way into being accepted. So she couldn't even accept herself, but that's self-compassion and love. So if we find part of ourselves unacceptable, we tend then to attack others in order to defend against the threat, because we people appear as a threat to us. If we are okay with ourselves, we see others' behaviors as about them. It's all about them, and can respond then to them with compassion. And that's what I did. I saw everything about her, that she was so needy and so desperate to be seen because she felt unseen. And I responded to her with compassion. So if I kept hate in my heart for another, I would have to hate myself as well. You see how that works? Fascinating, right? This is the psychology we're talking about here, of hate, of humanness. It is only when we learn to hold ourselves with compassion that we may be able to demonstrate that toward others. So, what fills the void? Okay? This person, psychologist Bernard Golden, he's an author of a book called Overcoming Destructive Anger and Strategies That Work. This person, Bernard, believes that when hate involves participation in a group, it may help foster a sense of connection and camaraderie with that group that fills a void in one's own identity. In other words, he describes hatred of individuals or groups as a way of distracting oneself from the more challenging, provoking task of creating one's own identity. In other words, if you don't have your own identity or don't even know who you are, or you're struggling to find your foundation and your basis of who you are, and you know you are lovable and you know you are significant, if you don't have that, you will align yourself with a group of people of similar ilk. So acts of hate are attempts to distract oneself from feelings such as helplessness, powerlessness, injustice, inadequacy, and even shame. Hate is grounded in some sense of perceived threat. It is an attitude that can give rise to hostility and even aggression toward individuals or groups. Like much of anger, it is a reaction to and distraction from some form of inner pain. And I saw that woman had a lot of inner pain. Okay, she just was filled with inner pain and unsure of herself, so she had to pretend that she was strong and very sure of herself. The individual consumed by hate may believe that the only way to regain some sense of power over his or her own pain is to preemptively strike out at others. And now, in this context, each moment of hate is a temporary reprieve from an inner suffering. Do you have anything you want to say on that?
No, I think that was pretty well written. Go ahead.
Okay, so now we have societal and cultural factors, and this we really want to pay attention to because this is what we're all involved in, our culture and society. So the answer to why we hate, according to Sylvia Ducevici, she's LCSW president and founder of the Critical Therapy Center, lies not only in our psychological makeup or our family history, but also in our cultural and political history. We live in a war culture that promotes violence, in which competition is a way of life, she says. We fear connecting because it requires us to reveal something about ourselves. And we are taught to hate the enemy, meaning anyone that is different than us, which leaves little room for vulnerability and an exploration of hate through emphatic discourse and understanding or understanding. In our current society, one is more ready to fight than to resolve conflict, but peace is seldom the option. So
we see this playing out so much today, so much. It's a travesty that we find ourselves here, because we have to look and see that this hate, it is formed through a lifetime of pain, self-pain and suffering. And so we have to see that these people who are so willing to give themselves over to this hate, to this
divisiveness, separateness, right?
Yes, that their lives, what is it, think about it, to have to live a life where you feel unjustified, where you feel that you have no merit. How terrible that must be. And how did we get to that point? That's another thing that we need to think about in solving this, is how do we prevent our children from growing up with this same detriment to self? You know, this is where, to me, the crux of all of this is at. The center of it is our children, and they have to be able to love themselves in order to love the world around them. What are we doing to them today? Think about it. What are we teaching them?
Right.
Today? Go ahead.
Well, I want to say that as a parent, I'm thinking now about how I would want to protect my children, you know, or my grandchildren, how that's my job, okay, to protect them from harm, from others who, you know, who have a different perspective of life or behaviors or prejudices even, or hate. That my job would be to help my children to not be harmed, not to suffer someone else's hate. I don't know if you've ever been on the other end of it. I have. I've been on the other end of someone's hate, and I'll tell you, it's not a fun place to be. It's a terrible place. Unjustifiable hatred, to experience that, just because, and I have no clue why. Jealousy, I don't know. I could name a few things. Jealousy, or just an agenda, because, or maybe that person is just a person who hates. I don't know the answer. I know I've been on the other end of that. And to protect my children, the first thing that I would do is to help them learn how to be compassionate and loving. Never, ever would I talk hate to my children. Never, ever would I speak about hating another person, or hating a group of people, or hating, someone else who's different. I may not like that person. I may disagree with that person. I may be frustrated with that person's, and I might not like what they are doing. But I would never, ever speak hatred toward a persons or group in front of my children, because I would be teaching them and training them how to hate. And therefore, I would not be protecting them. I would not be helping them. From the most essential part of our humanness is that heart spirit, and how to walk in what we call walk in the beauty way, So here's the question, what can we do? And here, we've talked about this, and all you guys listening out there, you know this. Hatred has to be learned. Now, we are all born with the capacity for aggression as well as compassion. Which tendencies we embrace requires mindful choice by each one of us. By our families, our communities, and our culture in general. Now, the key to overcoming hate is education, of course, at home, in schools, and even in our community. According to Dostoevsky, facing the fear of being vulnerable and utterly human is what allows us to connect, to feel, and ultimately to love. She suggests creating cracks in the system, so these cracks can be as simple as connecting to neighbors, talking with a friend, or maybe people that I would say might be of a different religious group, or, that type of thing. Getting to know others instead of sticking with your safe group, reaching out to others that might be a little bit different, talking with a friend, starting a protest, or even going to therapy and connecting with an other. It is through these acts that one can understand hate and love. In other words, compassion toward others is the true context that heals. And I'm going to say, I think that compassion and love is the answer to what we are dealing with today. Because I'm not denying that there aren't people out there doing awful stuff. I'm not denying that. I will not stand in their shoes and do awful stuff and hate and spew hatred and divisiveness. I will choose the opposite. I will not play their game. Okay, so this is where we are today, and the word vulnerable, right? I mean, it takes a lot to really love. It takes a lot to really reach out to people, and it may have a feeling of, well, I'm going to be vulnerable. Suppose they turn their back on me, or suppose they spew hatred toward me. Suppose they, I don't know. I'm going to expose myself and be vulnerable to people that I'm told I should dislike, or I'm told I should hate. People hate, spewing out divisiveness, hatred, and all this stuff at people they don't even know personally. They don't even know personally the person that they're hating. But they're in that flow, in that mix with the other haters, They're caught up in it. This is what's going on. They're not even thinking, wait a second, I don't even really know that person. I don't know their story. I don't know what's going on with them. Why am I hating that person? Just because someone told me, yeah, you should hate that person? So that's my question. And I realized that when I was thinking about hate, I think, wow, there's so much of this divisiveness and disunity and hatred being tossed around and pressed upon us, upon others who we don't even know, just because they have a different color skin, or just because they have a different religion, or their politics are different, or along those lines. So this is really, to me, very powerful, how we are being, run, ruled, inundated to have an act of hatred or divisiveness toward others or a person. What do you think, sis?
Well, I think that there was an interesting question put in the chat by Yuj, and he says, like, how do you love yourself when you hate yourself? And that's the crux of it, isn't it? That's the crux of it. Is okay. So, all right, you're telling me that it is because I hold this hate for myself within me, and these judgments against myself within me, but I don't want to face them. And that's why I'm projecting them outward so that I can see it in someone else and take it away from me. Well, the answer to that is to simply quit putting it outside of yourself. Look inside and see, we all have ugly parts to us. We do. There are parts within us that we don't want to see because we know they're ugly, because they're not pretty to look at. But when they interfere with your ability to function in a loving and compassionate manner, then we have to take a long look at who we are and why we are that way. We place so much blame on ourselves because that's what we do when we're young and we're growing up and everything, and we're chastised or we're bullied in school or for this matter or that matter. We were laughed at and we held it all in, but we didn't let it out. So we started thinking that maybe I was worthy of them treating me like that. And so we built upon it as we were children, and we kept putting it in our little baggage, our little backpack that we carry around with us. And pretty soon we lost the reasonings behind it, that they were just bullies, that they didn't know who I was in the first place. And we started believing that that's who we were, that I did this, they did this because I was bad. But it's not always that simple. We forget how beautiful we are when we choose to not look at ourselves. Because, there's some gunk in there. There's some darkness in there. There's some ugly in there. But there's also beauty in there. There's also love and compassion in there. We love our children. We have no problem expressing love to our children. We see them as an extension of ourselves. It's that love that we're trying to justify within ourselves that we're projecting onto our children. So it is there within us. But if we don't ever look at the wrong within us, we're never going to see the right within us. And the wrong is going to rule, because that's an emotional state. An emotional state that constantly eats at you. It eats at your psyche. It gets into your mind. It jumbles your heart. And so the first time that you say to yourself, well, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna be friends with that person over there, and that person says one thing that is untoward. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was just them being snarky. All of a sudden you find yourself back in that place of self-hate, and you're throwing it back at them. It's because you never took care of that within yourself. And nobody can cure what you hold within you. Nobody can take that away. Nobody can teach you the truth of who you are. Only you can. Only you can see the good and the bad. Only you can teach yourself how beautiful you are. You can't take what's done to you in your life as personal. You can look out there and say, that person had no right to make me feel that way. That person had no right to do that to me, because I didn't deserve that. No matter who you are, no matter what, they didn't have a right to come into you and destroy your self-worth and destroy the love that you felt for yourself. But somewhere along the line, you took it that was who you were. Maybe your parents were not the best parents in the world, and they constantly chastised you and told you that you weren't worth anything and you were useless, and pretty soon, after hearing that for a long time, you become that. But that's not who you were. That's what you adopted. That's what they told you, but it's not personal. It's not who you are. It's what you adopted upon yourself. And so you act out upon that, and you strike out before somebody else can make you feel that way again. But you always have the ability to look at that and say, they were wrong. That was wrong. And I am beautiful. And I am loved. And that's where we need to go at. We need to see that, yeah, well, I made a mistake because I took that personal. I took what that person said as who I truly am, and I was wrong. And make the change. Nobody can take your pain from you. Nobody can do that. And you will keep it as long as you carry it. And you hear me say all the time, you can't take life personal, because it just happens. The only thing that you have control of is you. And you are worthy, and you are valid, and you are beautiful, because you come from the same source that I came from. And I can tell you for a fact, I know you're beautiful, and I know you're valid, and I know that people did bad things and said bad things to you, and I know that people made you feel less than who you are, but they were wrong. I promise you that. They were wrong. And you just have to get to that point to where you can stand up on your own and say, you're wrong. You don't know me at all. I know who I am. It hurts my heart to think that there are people out there who feel that they are less than me or anybody else. It hurts my heart, because nobody should ever feel that way. You come from something so wondrous and so beautiful, and you retain that. That's who you are. That's your source. The same as me. We can't decide that whatever someone outside of us decides is who we are. We have to decide who we are for ourselves. You know? And just go back to the source of who you truly are and work it out from there. Because you are beautiful. There's nothing as wondrous as you. Just saying.
Well, thank you for that. That's beautiful. And I just want to add a little bit, because I've been there. And thank you for that question, by the way. That's a very powerful and beautiful question. Very important. Because I know there are many people. So your question is very important to me, because I've been there a long time ago. It makes me think of, the child that I was and who I knew I was originally. And I tried to express that, because that's what children do. You express your joy and your incredible creativeness without shame, and the awesomeness of oneself, and that you are in awe of everything. And you want to express that. You want to dance, you want to sing, you want to, just act like a child. And then you're stomped on, or you're put down, or you're reprimanded, or you're shamed, And then over time you start to be fearful of expressing yourself, And, I was there. That happened to me. And so I learned how to hide. And then what happened to the real me, that sacred child, that joyous child, that wondrous child, was covered all up with beliefs that I'm no good, or that I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. There must be something wrong with me. I have to be very careful now not to expose myself, not to become vulnerable, not to express myself, and I dare never ever trust anyone again, because I'm a piece of crap. I hate myself. So I learned that too. And I know a lot of people, I would say a great majority of people, have experienced that. And I came to realize that, yes, I was born to my parents, of course, but I learned my true source, the Sacred Mother, Sacred Father, that is my source that I believe in. And I believe in my sacredness and the light that is within me. It's taken me a long time to get to that and to fully rid myself of the false information that I was given unknowingly. It's not like my parents set out to punish me or torture me or give me wrong information. I know now that my parents suffered just like I did. They were given wrong information, and they believed certain things about themselves that weren't true. So this is like generations. This is what I'm talking about. So, I want to thank you for that question, because it's a big one. And like Patty says, it's like the beauty that you are is ever present. And what's covering that up is all this wrong information, these imprints and these beliefs about yourself that have no grounds. They're not true at all. Now, I could talk to you, Patty could talk to you till we're blue in the face and say that. That's our personal journey, though. It's like a journey of life that we find our way through all these terrible experiences and beliefs and falling down and picking ourselves up. And the fact that you're here with us today on People for People, that's pretty awesome. That tells me there's something inside of you that is very powerful. There's something that's holding you up, holding you together. And all this other chatter, I call it the monkey mind chatter, that tells you, oh yeah, well, Patty and Barbara, they don't even know you. You're really worthless. That chatterbox will do that, because those are just false imprints that you were given. So you have to just tell them to shut up. That's not who I am. Go away. This is not true. Okay, so these are some things that you can do. You have to start believing in yourself, because nobody did believe in you. Okay, and you were given false information to doubt yourself and to believe that you are worthless and have no value. Just the mere fact that you're here on People for People with us is very valuable to me, and I mean it when I say I'm so grateful to see the people here in the chat. It's very important to me. So that alone is significant, that you're here with us. And that question that you asked is so significant, and I want to thank you for that, because it helps us to go deeper into our own hearts, to be able to to respond in a way that we hope will help, or be of some help, some guidance. I think most of us have been there, and this is part of our journey of life. How do we find ourselves, our true nature once again? Because we all came in with it. We all came in as a sacred child, knowing exactly who we were: joyous, wondrous, creative, expressive, self-expressive. All of that. Shame came later. Guilt came later. Self-betrayal came later, because that was imprinted upon us. Sad to say, no child should suffer that kind of thing. But I was there, So I want to thank you for being here. And yeah, I'm going to go on with the next link, which is
Well,
very interesting.
we're coming up
Go
at
ahead.
the top of the hour. You want to go ahead and take a break?
Oh, yeah, because I want to tell you what this next link is. It's called The Incompetent Heart. Okay, why people love to hate you. And we'll do that when we come back and take a short break. We'll see you on the other side.
Yep, and while I'm looking for the song that I want to do, I will chat like as if I'm not looking for the song that I want to do, so that you
Okay.
don't know that I didn't have it loaded and ready to play when I asked for the dang break. So, having said that, and I'm still looking for the dang.
Well, you could sing. You could sing.
I got it.
Okay.
Oh, I got it. We'll see you on the other side, folks. And welcome back, everybody, to the Turtle and Crow Show. And today's show is, if hate was the answer, how stupid was the question? And, that's kind of strong, kind of strong statement, but you have to think about it. You have to think that if you came to the conclusion that hate was the best thing that you could do, what remedy are you looking for? What are you trying to create with your hate? Are you trying to create a synthesis of love? Are you trying to create the coming together and unity? Are you trying to create a middle ground so that you can come together? No, you can't do that in hate. And that's truly the main enemy that we all face today. No matter what else is going on in your world, it all traces back to that. And so that's why we're talking about it today. And that's why we think that it is the most important subject that we can put across, and to try and work this out so that we don't have to deal with this. We don't need hate. There's no reason that we should ever want hate in our lives. It has no benefit for us or anyone. It doesn't cure anything. Anyway, sis,
Okay.
ready to go
Yeah.
on with the...
So we're going to go to, Okay, we're going to go to The Incompetent Heart, why people love to hate you. And this states here, we see others as enemies, not people. Okay. And Socrates said, if you all know who Socrates was, a great philosopher, said, from the deepest desires often come the deadliest hate. And I think what you just said about what are we trying to, if you spew out hatred, what are you trying to bring? What is your, what's your idea? What's your plan? Because this is what this is saying. From the deepest desires often come the deadliest hate. So this is the news roller coaster. This is about the news roller coaster. I think we're all on the roller coaster if you pay attention to the mainstream media. My emotions are up and down. The wild ride is anything but fun. It says here the politicians are supposed to commit their best efforts for the public good, not to be fighting against each other. And books are meant to inspire readers, not to sink someone or bring someone into depression. Similarly, book reviews should help us understand what's in it for us, not encouraging that we bash the author. We must call out lousy conduct from leaders, not play their game. I'm going to repeat that because this is very important. We must call out the lousy conduct from leaders and not play their game. By taking sides, we are not just legitimizing attacks and divisive behaviors, we are also fueling hate. And this, I think, is where we are. We see people taking sides, feeding each other this attacks on someone or groups or a person or whatever. And so what we're doing when we do that is we are fueling hate. And we have to ask ourselves, is that what we want to do? Is that what I want to do? Do I want to fuel hate? Do I want to feed hate? So the worst part is not that hating others is normal. It has become socially accepted. And I don't think hate is normal. I think there's always those that will be, hateful or divisive or whatever, but it seems that this is becoming socially accepted today. It's on that level. So I'm not taking a moral stand here. I'm far from being perfect. This post is a personal reflection, and I'm inviting you to join me, the writer says. On the social media stage, looking right seems the only thing that matters. In other words, being right is what matters. Rather than using our emotions and intellect to do what's best, instead we focus on proving others wrong. Those who think differently become our enemies. The primitive skill to separate friends from foes is an essential survival strategy. Back to that again, the survival thing. However, that instinct made sense in a primitive age where the world was threatening and unknown. It feels irrational that after centuries of breakthroughs and improvements in medicine, education, technology, food, just to name a few, that we still feel under constant attack. And don't you think that the media and even politicians have something to do with that constant attack? I'm going to say that's what it feels like to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we are emotionally incompetent. That's why we love to hate others. Okay, this is a statement by this writer, which I think this statement is very interesting to me. So if you love to hate others, or if you hate others, or you're spewing divisiveness and hatred or negativities toward others, that means you are emotionally incompetent. Well, what does that fully mean then? It's hard to believe that we are in the 21st century. We behave as if the world was still unsafe and dangerous. Many people are not using their voices to make things better. Thank you. They express their opinions simply to hurt others, to silence opposite thoughts. The hatred that we see daily on social media, the news, or at the water cooler conversations is doing us no good as a society. And I'm going to add Facebook and Twitter and all those other venues as well. Our hearts have become completely incompetent because hate has taken over our emotions. And I think we'll find out when we get to this is a short read here, and when we get to Saul Alinsky, we're going to find out how did hate take over our emotions, because this is really a key piece here. Hate is personal. What causes anger is not. In time, we hate that which we often fear, said William Shakespeare. Hating others is an easy way out. Hate is a self-defense mechanism. When under attack, the ability to quickly separate foes from friends was essential in order to survive. However, most of our current threats are perceptions, not real ones. We create the fight. When things don't go well, we play the blame game. We look for a scapegoat. We like always to be right and feel safe. We embrace hate as a way to protect our self-esteem or to defend our community's interests or beliefs. Hate is personal for the attacker, but don't take it personally. No, hate is in the eye of the giver, not on the receiver. People hate what they don't understand. They reject those who think or even look differently. People hate others because of what they reflect about them too. When someone attacks you, avoid getting into a useless battle. No one wins the hatred war. As a matter of fact, no one wins the hatred war, but the hatred war does a tremendous amount of damage. Regardless if someone is passionate and committed to attacking you, don't get caught into that tactic. You need two sides to start a war. Avoidance is a powerful response. In other words, we can take this both ways. If someone is spewing out hatred or, malicious things about you or negativity, avoid it. That's a powerful response. The same goes in the other direction. If someone out there, a politician or another person or whatever, okay, is spewing out stuff or talking about stuff or presenting stuff, okay, that you don't like or you disagree with, okay, you have a right to say, well, I disagree with you. Okay, but to spew out hatred and divisiveness and anger, okay, what purpose are you serving? What good is that doing? It only does harm to yourself when you have that energy of hatred. So you may not be able to disarm your attacker, but haters love to be hated back. Guess what? They will soon find another enemy that likes to play their game. You know, your heart was programmed to hate others. Martin Luther King, we all know Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Inherently, we are all full of goodness. Now, this sounds hard for many people to digest, perhaps, right? That innately we are all full of goodness, but our true essence as human beings is to be and do good, and that is our true essence. Buddhist psychologist Trungpa, author of The Sanity We Are Born With, says, "Delight in itself is the approach of sanity. Delight is to open your eyes to the reality of the situation rather than siding with this or that point of view."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there you go. When we can observe other points of view without judging, there's no need to hate. Being different doesn't mean better or worse. Different is just different. That's it. So now we have the internet. This internet has empowered us to collaborate, share insights, teach, and support others. We can access contents for free. Pictures, books, recipes, everything. That's the magic of humans' generosity. Perfect proof that our intrinsic nature is good. Hatred was part of our society's software update. It came by default. You don't need to accept that upgrade. In other words, yeah, delete it. You know, people hate other political parties and religions because their ideology is the truth. They reject other races or ethnic groups because their bodies are superior. People hate an article because they know better. So I'm going to repeat that. So a person who hates other political parties or another religion, they do that because they believe that their own ideology is the truth. And also that person or those persons will reject other races or ethnic groups because they believe their bodies are superior. People hate an article because they know better. However, those are just beliefs. They're not objective truths. And we are blinded by our beliefs. That's why we hate others. Hate makes people feel cool. It gives them authority and power. Let's take racism, for example. It's not natural. It's an artificial concept that was wired into our brains and hearts. This in-depth National Geographic article sheds light on how science created a racial hierarchy. And in this link that Patty just put up, you can click on that racial hierarchy. Studies performed by Dr. Samuel Morton wrongfully concluded by studying skulls from various ethnic groups that some races were superior to others. Now this Dr. Morton, he wrongfully concluded this, but you know how long that his study has stuck in the minds of people? That various ethnic groups, because of their skulls, it showed, or he said it proved that they were superior. And mostly that was like the white skulls, those of the white people were superior to others of color. That's what he concluded. And that was put in scientific books, writings, all kinds of information. That his study was imprinted and printed and spoken of for years and centuries. And people believed it, and I still think they believe it today. So, the scientists believed that Caucasians were the most intelligent of the races. East Asians, and he actually used the term Mongolian, though ingenious and susceptible to cultivation, were one step down from the Caucasians, and blacks or Ethiopians were at the bottom. And now in the decades before American Civil War, his ideas were used to justify slavery. The Homo sapiens species evolved in Africa, period. Modern genetic research has shown that all humans are closely related, period. We all have the same collection of genes, period, but slightly different versions of some of them. As the article points out, all people alive today are Africans, period. Race has nothing to do with how brains perform. However, we were wired to establish hierarchies. Now, rather than taking people for who they are, we judge them by the group that they belong to. Hating someone is very personal. The reason that fuel hate are mostly social. Someone persuades us to see others as an enemy. Leaders know how to play that paranoia card now, don't they? They find an external enemy to bring their supporters together. Having a common enemy is what makes hatred personal. We turn life into a them versus us experience. We've been taught that the best defense is to attack back. That's why people love to hate others. They think that destroying someone else's reputation first would score them a huge victory. You know, when things get personal, we let our irrationality take over. Pause and think. Is your enemy for real? Don't let mass thinking cloud your judgment. Avoid being prey of the "you are either with us or against us" approach. And those who put you in that situation don't want you to think. You are just a number. They want to add you to their support base. Don't play the hate game. Booker T. Washington said, "I will permit no man to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him." Now, that's a powerful statement because...
Yes, it is.
Do you want to talk on that?
Oh, it says it all. I mean, that, like you said, that's very powerful. I will permit no man or woman to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him or her. That's what it comes down to.
So let's look at it the other way. So if some person hates others, you know, let's say you have an uncle who is always spewing hate about someone, right? What's happening to his soul? His own soul. What is he doing to his own spirit soul? If he's a person who hates and spews out hatred and divisiveness and negativity towards others, he is degrading his own spirit soul. That's what's happening. Right?
Exactly.
And here's another one.
We see this so often, don't we? We see this, especially with religious doctrine, with educational doctrine, and with government doctrine, and the mainstream media doctrine, where that's what they want. That is the result that they want, is they want us to hate. And
well, isn't it the time of... Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it reminds me of the statement that we've heard often about this is the time of, and maybe I'm not saying it correctly, but this is the time of souls being eaten.
Right. Right. Two Dog says that. This is the time when souls get eaten. And it's true. And the you know, people think, well, then the devil, when he shows up, I'm going to tell him, well, the devil is hate.
That's correct.
If you hate, you've already allowed that into your heart, you know? Just saying.
No, I agree, because, so this is the time when souls get eaten, and we are responsible for how we behave. We are responsible for our words. We are responsible for what we type on Twitter or Facebook or chat or whatever. We are responsible to how we talk to people. We are responsible for our own soul. Either we're going to keep our soul pure and in goodness and in alignment with love and compassion, or we're going to harm our own soul spirit. So it's not like somebody out there is coming along to eat souls. We're part of this. I feel we are part of this. We are vulnerable to that. And how we act, if we are a person who hates or hates others or wants to do harm to others, we are hurting our own soul, our own spirit. That's how I'm going to look at what Booker T. Washington said. So, hating others is a personal decision. People are intolerant and expect you to behave the same way. It takes me decades to realize my own intolerance. And that was a turning point to stop hating what I didn't understand or what I didn't like. Now I can focus on becoming more accepting of others. We are wired to see others as enemies, not people. Now, writing frequently has exposed me, this writer, who's writing this, to great people here at Medium staff. But I've been the target of a lot of intolerance and also hatred. I had to develop a thick skin, more so than I had. I love getting feedback from my readers, not just kind words, but being challenged so I can improve as a person. However, I find it a waste of time to interact with those who are merely looking for a fight. I wrote a post about freedom that created a lot of controversies. I said that freedom requires self-regulation too. We are free to speak, but that doesn't mean we should attack others because they don't share our beliefs. Some people fired back and said I was encouraging dictators. I used people's reactions to self-reflect. And that's a very important statement.
Yes, and it should be automatic for us, but it's not for some reason.
If I feel criticized or I don't understand a message, what vulnerabilities are being exposed? Why do I feel criticized? Are my words confusing? I challenge my own thinking and I do additional research. And I'm going to add, if I find myself hating someone, if I find myself spewing out just divisive, negativities and divisiveness of others, I think I need to reflect on what the heck is going on with me. Why am I doing that? And I have to challenge my own thinking, and I think it's very important because every word that we say has a repercussion. Every thought and even our emotions have repercussions, and we've talked about that because we're talking about frequency, the power of our words, right? So reacting is easy. Guess what? Reacting is easy, but reflection requires a great courage. And that means we're all being asked to stand up and become warriors here, to be courageous and reflect upon our behavior, our words, our acts, and so on. Because in
effect, to become responsible for what we project. Yes.
Yeah, so it's easy to react. Yeah, you can get angry and annoyed and this and that and shout out and attack somebody else and spew out whatever you want because you're reacting. Okay, but you're kind of lacking in courage, I'd say, to really reflect on what's happening to me right now. Wow, why did I choose to throw out all this negativity? Wow, what's going on? I need to reflect on what is happening to me. So we all have emotions, but that doesn't mean that we need to let them drive our behaviors. Becoming emotionally competent requires, we have to tame our minds to look at our emotions, not through them. So we have the hierarchies of hate. Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. And I love this. This is Epictetus. Epictetus was a philosopher, a Greek philosopher. He said, any person who is capable of angering you becomes your master. And I say, if you react or are triggered and you react, you are giving away your power to that person or persons. And this is basically the same thing Epictetus just said. That person who angers you where you lose it, okay, and react becomes your master. So, today we have threats that are psychological rather than physical. We need to correct our thinking so we don't apply the same primitive impulse to destroy our enemy. Now, considering evidence, not perception, can help correct your thinking. Evidence, not perception. Empathy and reflection are critical to avoid feeding your self-preservation mechanisms. Most attacks are provocations, not real danger. The problem with hatred is that it quickly escalates. What starts as mere intolerance or a cultural bias could easily become something more alarming, violent. The pyramid of hate is a powerful exercise that many organizations use to drive awareness. Small intolerance acts can turn into dangerous ones. And at work, in our families or society, we need to call out these behaviors before they get out of hand. So there is a diagram here. Talks about the pyramid of hate. It says, there's an arrow here. At the bottom is prejudice. In the middle is hate. And up above, at the very point, is violence. So this is interesting. It talks about acts of bias, acts of prejudice, acts of discrimination, acts of violence lead to genocide. This is where we are. So bias, the first level, the base of the pyramid, is when our prejudice is expressed through jokes, criticism, and other expressions of this bias. It feels harmless, doesn't it, but quickly moves to the next level, which is individual acts of prejudice. Now, this level manifests through acts that start affecting the other person. It includes avoiding those that we hate, or scapegoating, or ridiculing them, or social avoidance. Prejudice turns into rejection, which leads to the third level, which is discrimination. The middle of the pyramid involves intentional discrimination. In other words, we limit possibilities to those that we hate. From a job promotion, perhaps, or housing opportunities, these types of behaviors are punished by law. They go beyond our freedom.
I just wanted to put in here before you go too much further that this third level of discrimination, we have a visible fact of this going on right now when people cannot be safe in a restaurant. They cannot be safe in their homes. They cannot be safe in their cars, at the park, or in their church because of the discrimination that has gone to the furthest extent it can go and is breeding reaction and hate. We're witnessing this right now. Just saying. We are here.
Yes, we are. That's true. So the fourth level then is bias-motivated violence. This level is when discrimination becomes a social movement. Masses, most of the time encouraged by leaders, attack properties, holy places, or even groups. It can even include murder and terrorist acts, exactly. So we are at the fourth level. And in some cases, we are even at the fifth level. We've seen this. Genocide. Now, genocide as defined by the United Nations in 1948 means acts committed with intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, and it includes both physical and mental harm. So, building emotional competency. Emotional competency is mastering how we communicate or how we release our inner feelings. And this determines our ability to effectively and successfully lead and express. Now, if you want to be a leader, you have to master your emotional competence, your emotional self. If you think you're a leader, or you want to be a leader, you want to help people, you want to stand strong for your people, for your family, for your children, for your community, this is what this is saying. That we must master these emotional expressions, is like the knee-jerk reaction of our emotions. How effective are we to successfully do this? Here are some tips for you to avoid hate taking over your life. Be aware of your emotions. Can you discuss feelings without getting into an argument? Apply empathy to understand how others feel, even if it doesn't make any sense to you. Mind your words. We've incorporated the word hate as part of our regular vocabulary. When someone hurts your feelings, avoid using the word hate. Okay? If you don't like what someone's doing, or you don't agree with their politics, or you don't agree with them, avoid using the word hate. Reframe it in the form of, I don't like that you did so-and-so to me, or I don't agree with you. Even if you are just talking to yourself, it will switch your speech from defensive to reflective. Practice adaptability. Try seeing the world through other people's beliefs. Now, I'm not saying change yours. Simply understand why other people think differently. Even if they are attacking you, or even if you disagree with them. Let go of the beliefs and experiment conceding something to your opponent, like I did. I conceded the eagle feather in the smudge bowl. Not that she was an opponent, but she was just seeking, from her weak points and her inability to feel good about herself. She was needing help, and I gave her the help. That's just one example. When there is no difference, there is no point fighting. You have to avoid power struggles. Let go of having to make your point over and over and over again. Sometimes it's better to be human than to be right. When you fight back, you are mimicking your aggressor's behavior. Provocation is not a war declaration. Retaliation is. Accept the differences. Tolerance is a two-way street. If you want people to respect your beliefs and your thinking, you also have to abide by the same rules. It's easy to ask for understanding, but appreciating others' points of view requires courage. And embrace forgiveness. Now, I know I'm getting myself into trouble again by saying this, but I suggested this in a previous post about not playing the victim. Some people wrote back and they were furious. Well, what if I am a real victim? My answer was, many people have been through life-threatening situations, and yet, when they overcome those, they were able to pardon their perpetrators. Nelson Mandela is a perfect example. So, I'm going to scroll down here. Let's stop seeing other people as enemies. I think this is really key. The world benefits from diversity. If we all look, think, believe, feel, and act the same, the world would be boring. Understanding and tolerance and self-awareness are critical to moving from a defensive to an acceptive mode. It's not easy to do this, but being tolerant is one of our most significant challenges as human beings. It starts by accepting our own uniqueness so we can allow others to be true to themselves too. And learning to find the beauty in what looks different. This age and time requires maturity and reasoning, not fight or flight responses. And Elvis Presley? You remember him. He said animals don't hate, and we're supposed to be better than them. And that is so true. Do you have anything you want to add before I go on to what I'm going to say is going to be the real eye-opener here?
Well, I just want to say that as you were reading through this article, I think that if each and every one of us listening did not find a part of ourselves in here, and that we perhaps own a little bit of this, that maybe we are kind of denying that within ourselves, because even as you started reading it, I've always considered myself to be able to step on the other side to see, and to realize that what is being perpetrated on me is not a personal attack, even though it may be given that way, but it is coming from something deep within the other person that they haven't been able to deal with. Well, I found a little bit of me throughout what you were speaking. So I had to come back and sit with myself, and I had to say, now wait a minute, Patty. You own that right there. So let's work on that. And maybe that's what we all have to do. We all have to realize that maybe we all have a little bit of work to do to get to the right place. And it's okay. It's really okay that we feel that way, because that means that we're getting it. That means that we have an inner standing to work from, you know? We can't go through life being perfect because it just doesn't happen. But we can go through life correcting the things within us that keep us imperfect. And so, I just wanted to put that in there while you were reading that. I definitely did get a couple points out there that I own.
No, cool. Good. Well, thank you for telling us that. I want to say that walking the Chunkaluta, what we call the Red Road, or walking in the Sacred Manor, or walking the Beauty Way, you could call it, it's not easy. It isn't easy because you have to really constantly check up on yourself, and you have to be truthful to yourself. You really have to watch your every thought, every move, every act. If you want to walk that Chunkaluta, if you want to walk that Red Road, okay, it takes a person who has a good heart spirit, who is compassionate, who is loving, who helps the people, who stands for peace. So if you are walking that road, that pathway, and I do believe that Creator, Great Spirit, is asking every one of us to step onto that pathway. It's the same thing of just being loving and compassionate and kind. I think we're all being asked to, but if you stand on that pathway, if you're walking that pathway, you have to be very careful of the words you're using and your acts, because if you say that you are a peacemaker, if you say you are a Christian, if you say you are religious, if you say you are spiritual, and then your actions show differently, you have to rethink this whole thing. Okay? And the only one who really knows you fully and truthfully, what you are really doing and what's on your mind, what is in that heart spirit, is the Creator, Great Spirit. So we might be able to fool a lot of people, but we can never fool Creator, Great Spirit. So I just wanted to say that because every word and the things that we write, the things that we share, and our actions affect people. It's a repercussion, reverberation energetically throughout the whole of the web. It comes back to us, comes back to our people. So that is why to be a warrior, a spiritual warrior, okay, means that spiritual warrior walking on that Chunkaluta is a compassionate, loving person and never, ever talks hateful or bad things about others. Because that person, that warrior, knows that he has to uphold, or she has to uphold, the ways of the ancestors, and that Tonkashla, Great Spirit, is watching. And that's where we are today. So I just wanted to add that. So this is about Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. This is this person, John Loeffler, is breaking down some of Alinsky's most effective rules and how we can defeat them. So this is good. So Saul Alinsky says, this is a pragmatic primer for realistic radicals. In the beginning, the organizer's first job is to create the issues or problems. So if you're an organizer, your first job is to create issues or problems.
Create issues or problems, not address issues or problems. Create.
That's correct. Yeah, that's your first job. If you are an organizer of anything, doesn't matter. Your first job, he's advising, is to create problems. In any tactical scenario, knowing the opposition's moves and methods beforehand gives an unprecedented advantage. The methods are simple rules found in this simple playbook, have been the hidden force behind progressive leftist politics and media for the last 50 years. Let's take a look. Now, this is what's written here, and I'm going to say progressive leftist politics, because I think that both the right and the left once were pretty steady, and things have shifted to be extreme on both sides. And I'm not blaming the people of the left or the people of the right. I'm reading this article Saul Alinsky wrote, How to Become a Radical and Create Problems. And this is what I think we're dealing with. So in 1971, a hard left progressive community organizer named Saul B. Alinsky wrote a playbook of subversive tactics called Rules for Radicals to empower an upcoming generation of change agents. A few notable adherents to the Alinsky method are Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dawn, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Frank Marshall Davis, and President Barack Obama. Progressive exploit the weaknesses inherent in our system, made weaker by pitting opposing forces against one another. They also oppose independent, morally strong, educated people because those individuals, especially in groups, cannot be manipulated so easily. They attempt to run constitutional rights with social contract, and dialectic consensus methods. Alinskyites engage in large-scale social engineering. In other words, they attempt to unfreeze a society using chaos and to then refreeze it in a new predefined shape. The dividing lines they polarize people on are most often radical, economic, religious, and political. Their main goal is to cause social instability through subversive and divisive rhetoric. One method is to control the outcome of the education system by lowering the standards of education so that it creates a dependent class. As adherents to the Cloward-Pivens strategy, they use their political platforms to overload a society with social spending programs and class warfare to the point that hatred and division cause social panic. Now, once they've created a problem, they propose themselves as the answer and use wealth transfers and the trumping of rights as the method to bring about equality. The purpose of exposing the Alinsky method is to equip the next generation to identify and defeat these divisive tactics. Many people aren't even aware that they are being manipulated, in essence weaponized against their fellow man. The next time a progressive opens his or her mouth, be armed with this playbook so that you can spot the tactics they employ and from whom the argument originates. Here's a quote from Mr. Alinsky. Lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from all of our legends, mythology, and history, and who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, of which is which. The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom was Lucifer. So, Saul Alinsky's 13 rules. 1. Power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Power is derived from two main sources, money and people. Have-nots must build power from flesh and blood. 2. Never go outside the expertise of your own people. It results in confusion, fear, and retreat. Feeling secure as to the backbone of anyone. 3. Whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Look for ways to increase insecurity, anxiety, and even uncertainty. 4. Make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. If the rule is that every letter gets a reply, send 30,000 letters. You can kill them with this because no one can possibly obey all of their own rules. 5. Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It's irrational. It's infuriating. It also works as a key pressure point to force the enemy into concessions. 6. A good tactic is one your people enjoy. They'll keep doing it without urging and come back to do more. They're doing their thing and will even suggest better ones. A tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Keep the pressure on. Never let up. Keep trying new things to keep the opposition off balance. As the opposition masters one approach, hit them from the
Sis, you're kind of
front to
fading
develop.
out. You're fading in and out. Sis, you want to read 8 again?
8. Keep the pressure on and never let up. Keep trying new things to keep the opposition off balance. As the opposition masters one approach, hit them with another. Hit them with something else. And number 9 is the threat is usually more terrifying than the list itself or the thing itself. So it's like imagination and ego can dream up many more consequences from any activist. 10. The major promise for tactics is the development of operations that will maintain a constant pressure upon the opposition. It is the unceasing pressure that results in the reactions from the opposition that are essential for the success of our campaign. 11. If you push a negative hard enough, it will push through and become a positive. Violence from the other side can win the public to your side because the public sympathizes with the underdog. The price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. Never let the enemy score points because you're caught without a solution to the problem. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Cut off the support network and isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people and not institutions because people hurt faster than institutions.
And here we see, without a shadow of a doubt, that Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals has been played out, all 13 rules. And look at what is happening. This country's being destroyed. Not by the political system, although the political system is corrupt. Not by the religions, although the religions also are corrupt. Not by the educational system, because the educational systems are all corrupt. It's being destroyed because the people are turning against each other. And when that happens, there can be no solution. The institutions that are responsible for the corruption, for the deeds that have brought us and ripened this situation, they are where we need to be targeting. But instead, what are we doing? It's a perfect storm. And if we are entertaining this, if we are stepping into this, then we ourselves are destroying ourselves and our children and our futures. This is what me and Barb try to get across so much, is that the people are not the problem. They are being used. We are being used. The problem exists beyond the people. It is the institutions that create the system that allows for these evils and this hate to take hold. And then you have these people like Saul Alinsky who are waiting with bated breath so that they can institute their rules for radicals and destroy what we need to survive. Just saying. Are you with us?
That's all on the, yeah, that's all on that Saul Alinsky. There's more, but I think it's definitely dirty politics, if you want to say. I think that he also wrote, in war, anything goes. So, and that seems to be where they are. You can see what we're dealing with, on an everyday basis, how this divisiveness is really being pushed deliberately to get the people riled up and angry and fighting at each other over this political situation. And that's their plan. Because again, they create the problem, then they give us they see the reaction, they get their reaction, and then they're going to give us the solution. That's just what Saul Alinsky said. So I guess we have to, right? So we have to ask ourselves, how am I participating in Mr. Alinsky's and many others' plan here? Am I a participant in that? Am I divisive? Am I pushing out, separateness instead of unity? Am I creating disharmony instead of harmony? Am I reaching out to others who I'm told to dislike or hate, or who are the enemy because they have a different idea or political preference or whatever? I said, I know this article was regarding Saul Alinsky because he was supposedly he is a leftist, radical left. And I did say that I believe that there are extremes on both sides, and this is our problem, you see. This is where we are. So,
yeah. And that's the thing, and as we read through these articles, I think that the one thing good about it is, except for the one article did name the leftists, but they are the ones who have adopted the Saul Alinsky doctrines. But when we spoke and when we read these articles that we did, it wasn't to play one side against the other. We don't see any difference between one side or the other. We only see the divisiveness. We only see the rhetoric from both sides. We only see the hate from both sides. There is a video that is out today, and it's body camera footage released in a fatal shooting that occurred in January of a man who went to a school against the wishes of his wife, I guess estranged, who had custody of the child, and he didn't want the child going to that school. Of course, he didn't have the rights to decide where that child went, but he went there anyway. And in his pocket, he had a gun that was loaded, and he had a backpack full of ammunition, and he had ammunition in his vehicle. The police tried to stop him, make him leave the building. He fought the police, pulled the gun out, shot twice at the police officer, and then was shot, and he was killed. So the first thing that I saw when I looked at this video on YouTube were comments. Now this person, I will tell you right now that this person was on the left-leaning side, and actually he was a militant Antifa leader who had gone there to that school with the gun and the ammunition, and was shot as a consequence of pulling the gun and shooting at the cop twice. But that showed the wrong on the left side. That showed a terrible wrong. But in the chat below this video, I saw these people on the right spewing such hate and vitriol and congratulating and how happy they were that another one of those guys was dead. And this is what is wrong with us. This is what is wrong with us, that we could actually think that killing somebody was cool, that it had to come to this, and oh boy, we're glad, let's do some more. I mean, what does that say for us? What does that say about humanity? What does that say about people? You know, that we could cheer and we could wish such awful things. And this is both sides. It's not one side. So we all have work to do. Why are you on a side in the first place? If what we brought to you today can show you what harm it is doing, why are you standing on one side or the other? Why not join us in the middle and don't pick a side? Why not bring the people together and say, look, let's be grown-ups. Let's put away the arrows. Let's put away the stones. Let's come together. Let's solve the issues that we face instead of promoting the hate and the prejudice. It doesn't get any better. If you promote from one side or the other, it continues both sides. Just saying, sis.
Well, it reminds me of the video when Obama was president and they stormed the compound where, now I just can't remember his name. The supposed one who took down the towers. Anyway, the stormtroopers went in there, and we were watching the video and so on, and Obama, Hillary Clinton, and various other people were in on video. And when they killed him, Osama, that's who, Osama bin Laden, Hillary Clinton nearly jumped off of her chair with glee, clapping her hands, saying, "We saw, we came, and we killed him." I was like, yes, thank you, Vanessa, bin Laden. I don't know about you people out there. When I saw that, I just was struck by how evil that was. I don't care who any person is, to be gleeful and clap your hands in joy over the death of a person. I don't know, I have no words, I suppose. I don't know what that makes me, or whatever, or because I'm not with the pack, I guess, I suppose. I'm an outsider. I don't line myself with those people. Yeah, let's go kill them and then jump around and dance for glee. I'm not in that pack. I will never be in that wolf pack. I will never align with those people. But we have that going on today, and this is why we're talking about this today, because it is about hate. Hate, is rising here. Separateness, violence, as that pyramid said, leads to genocide. How are we participating in that? So I just wanted to say that, well, I'm really glad you all stuck here with us and more joined us because, and thank you for, thank you for staying with my sister and I. And I really appreciate it because I know sometimes there are things, like I said, that we're designated, Patty and I guess, to talk about challenging things. And like I said, I tried to get out of that a while back, but this is our job. We agreed, and we're grateful for the job that we were given, and we try to do our best. So I hope that it all, gave you something to think about and to reflect upon. Because, like Patty said, she discovered, something about herself. And none of us are perfect, and we're never going to be perfect. And this is a big test in our lives here. And I think it's time that we need to walk, what does it mean to walk in a sacred manner? It means to be one who is loving and compassionate and kind, not one who is hateful and spewing out negative things about anybody. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's Osama bin Laden. I don't care who it is, because that reflects upon my soul spirit. What I speak about, what I put out, what I feed other people is going to reflect upon my own soul spirit. And Creator is paying attention. That's all I have to say. So we have to choose wisely in these times and not reflect, not act responsive emotionally. If somebody's bothering you, if you're really upset about something, reflect upon that and say, well, why? Okay, I can be upset and angry, but do I want to attack that other person with hatred? Is that where I'm going? Is that what I am choosing? Because that is in your hands.
Is that who I am?
Is that who I am? Yeah. So we're at the top.
Yep, and coming up is the Love Bubble with Lizzie and Glenn.
Oh, we need that.
Yes, we do. And I'm just going to leave you guys with this. You know, if you strive to come from a place of love, if you strive to come from a place of beauty, then you're going to get there. But it takes commitment. It's not just words. It is actions that speak. We can say anything we want. We can say that we're this or we're that, but it's our actions that prove out the truth of who we are. And that's where we need to come from. So let's just be conscious of what we're putting out there. And let's stop reacting and start acting like the family that we are. I love each and every one of you, and thank